Hi, my name is Amanda, and thanks for watching today. Before we get started, we want to fill you in on our church. Here at Grace, we have a mission and a purpose. Our goal is to help people discover truth, decide on Jesus, demonstrate change, and deploy for others. If you're looking for a church, we would love for you to come and be a part of what God is doing here at Grace. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. We would also like to invite you to one of our Sunday morning services. Check out ohiograce.com for a list of campuses and service times in your area. We have a great time gathering for music, hanging out, and learning about who God is and how that affects our lives. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you here next week at Grace.
Happy Mother's Day. All right, we're glad that all you moms out there are here with us this morning, and just throwing this out there to all you guys, if this comes as a shock to you, all right, better hit up a store on the way out or do that Amazon Prime same-day delivery or get yourself some reservations tonight at some restaurant or something because it is Mother's Day. And here at Grace, number one, we want to be a church that, first of all, pushes men to be men and to provide and protect and step up with their families. But we also want to be a place where ladies and moms are honored, not just on Mother's Day, but are honored here every day. And so whether you have a child or not, just know that you ladies, that we care about you and we love you here at Grace. And we're so glad that you're part of our family. Today, we're going to be wrapping up our 3-week talk on work. And it's kind of fitting, right? Because we all know that being a mom is work, right? Like it's just work is part of it. And some days I'll come home at the end of work, I'll come home from work, and I'll walk in through my back door, and I'll walk into the kitchen, and Kate's in there. She's trying to frantically, she's moving kids around and trying to get dinner ready for practice. And we got a dog now, so that thing's running around, and my kids are throwing stuff. And sometimes there's a kid that's not even ours that runs through. I'm like, okay, that's a neighbor kid, I think. I don't know where that kid came from. All right, and it's on those days where I'll walk in, I'll see all the chaos, and I'll see all the work, and I'll just go, I'll be out in the garage if you need me. See ya. And I'll walk away. All right. That's how I do. All right. And usually she doesn't let me get away with that. But being a mom, or let's be honest, being a parent, all right, is work. And it doesn't pay all that well either, if you've noticed that. But it also is some of the most rewarding work that we can do if we make it out alive. All right. It's just good. Over the last couple weeks here, we have been talking about work, and the first week, we kind of established the idea that we were created to work. All right, it's like in us. It's a part of us. It's how God designed us. Deep down, some of us, maybe we haven't tapped into it for a while, all right, but deep down, it feels good and it's rewarding for us to work. And not only has God created us to work, but He tells us He wants us to work hard at the work that we're doing. And so we talked about that. And then last week, we talked about kind of the reason why we work. Number one, we are to work not just hard, but even more than that. All right, we are to work on a heart level, like a soul level thing. We're supposed to work with all of our heart. And the reason why we work is technically not for our boss, not for ourselves, not to get that raise, right? Or not to, make our house look better or whatever it might be, right? The reason why we work is because technically, if we think about it, we work for God. And that's how we as Christians should be thinking. And so we work hard and we work with our heart and we do everything that we can do, all right, because we work for God. Now, today we're going to talk about one last thing regarding work, and I think it's fitting for Mother's Day because we're going to be talking about rest and what that looks like when it comes to work. Now, if you look around at our culture and if you dig down deep and you kind of analyze your life, I honestly think we have forgotten how to rest. And I think most of us in here, we've gotten into this routine where we kind of work 7 days a week, right? We kind of work every day, meaning each day of the week we work, and a lot of times we're not working hard if we're honest with ourselves, and so we work. It's not that hard, and all the times that we have maybe our days off, and the kind of times that we're supposed to rest and relax, all right, what we end up doing in our culture is we end up filling that space up with a bunch of other things, all right? We make our relaxing day or our restful day, we make that super busy, all right? Throughout the week, we got our job, we got to take care of the kids, we got to go to this meeting, we got to pay the bills, we got to go to this game over here, we got to run the kids over here, we got to go do this errand. It's like we have all this stuff to do. It's not hard work, but it's not rest. And that is the formula for burnout. This is why I think anxiety and depression and stress is increasing throughout our culture. And as more and more people are feeling burned out, not just at their jobs, but more and more people are feeling burned out with their life in general. And that is not at all the life that God wants for us. And that's not at all the life that God has created for us. In fact, if you go all the way back to the beginning, God's initial design for us, we see in the first chapter of the first book, we can pull it up, we see some of the most important words in the Bible, the first 4 words of the Bible: in the beginning, God. Right? In the beginning, God. Here, before anything, right? Before the first day, before time even existed, before anything else existed, before anything, you have the uncaused cause. You have an eternal God doing his thing. In the beginning, God created, meaning God worked, and he created the heavens and the earth, right? And when he does this, if you remember how the story goes, right? First he creates the earth, and then he creates light, and he separates the water. He creates atmosphere and land and the sun and the moon and the fish and the birds and land animals. And then the crowning jewel of his creation is man and woman, Adam and Eve. And after he creates them, God does not give them a bunch of rules to follow. He doesn't say, okay, this is kind of how we view Christianity, or some of us, we view the Bible or God or whatever. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you have to follow all these rules. No fun, okay? Can't have any fun. You can't do anything like that, all right? You have all these things you got to do. No, he only gives them 2 things, all right? We see this. It says, on that day, God blessed them. And God said to him, he says, be fruitful and multiply. By the way, we all understand what that means, right? All right? Okay, all right. That's good work, by the way, okay? I'm just saying, if you're going to work, might as well be that. I'm just saying, okay, all right? So that's the first job, okay? He's saying, first thing I want you to do is be fruitful and multiply. All right, fill the earth and subdue it. All right, meaning manage it. Rule the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and every creature that crawls on the earth. All right, so God gives them 2 things to do. He says, number 1, I want you guys to go out and have babies. All right, so go out and get busy with that. Number 2, he's saying, I want you to subdue the earth. He's like, man, look around. Like, this place is wild. All right, there's stuff growing everywhere. Like I want you to go and manage it, build houses and roads and cities. All right, this place he's saying, I created for you. All right, this is his first work order. All right, this is God going up to Adam and Eve and not saying, man, get to work. No, this is God going up to Adam and Eve and saying, I have so much work for you to do. It's about to be awesome. This is going to be so good for you. And when God saw it, he looks out on everything that he made. Right? He looks out on the earth. He looks out on, the animals, all the dogs. He looks out on all that stuff, and he looks at Adam and Eve, and he sees how they relate to each other, all right? And he made them after his own image, and he looks at the system that he created and the work that he had for them, and he declares, man, this is very good. He just looks at it, and he's just like, man, this is good. He says, and evening came, and then morning, that 6th day. He says, so the heavens and the earth and everything in them, they were completed, right? It was done. And so on the 7th day, God had completed his work. All right, by the way, this is something we don't think about because a lot of times we spend our time trying to do whatever we can to get out of work, okay? Right? Do everything the easiest way possible, even though it's not the best way possible, right? But think about it. If God worked, logically, this is how I think, then work is godly. Does that make sense? All right, think about that. All right, think about that. If God works, which he clearly does, then that means that work is something that we can do, and work is actually godly for us to do. All right, so he completed his work. that he had done, and then he rested on the seventh day from all of his work that he had done. He says, God blessed the seventh day, and he declared it holy, for on it he rested from all of his work of creation. And so what do we see here? Right? God, he works hard for 6 days, and then he completely rests on the seventh. You ever ask yourself or wonder this? Why 6 days? And why not? Well, why not 4 or 1 or 1 second? You know, here's God. He's not bound by time. Like, he's limitless. He's never tired or anything. Like why? Like, for us, again, we're trying to be the most efficient with our life as possible. Like for us, you know, if it was me out there, I'd just be like, you know, let there be earth. And there's earth and everything's done. You know, and everything that's with it. Like, that's all he had to do. Like, have you ever thought about, like, why did he choose to space it out that way? See, it's funny because that's how we think. Our culture is obsessed with speed and efficiency. Okay, we just are. Like, if you try to drive to one side of the town, or let's say you're trying to go to Walmart, you know, what do? You take the fastest way possible, or the way that you think will be the fastest. And then what's funny is you get stopped by a train, or you hit every traffic light, or somebody slows you down, and what happens? We get frustrated. All right, because it's like, dude, get out of my way, you know? Why'd that guy get into my lane? Just this past week, we as a staff, we went to Dallas. We spent a few days in Dallas where we were in a bunch of meetings and stuff and trying to learn how to be better pastors for you guys. And as we were going through that, our house that we were staying in was an hour away from the place that we're meeting in. And so every morning we had to drive through the rush hour traffic. And it's like stop and go, stop and go. And as the driver, and maybe some of you guys are out there like me in this, as the driver, I'm constantly analyzing every lane. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh man, semi-truck over there, so I'm not getting in that lane because they're slow. And I'm like, that lane's going faster over there. Oh, sometimes you get out of that lane and then they speed up. You're like, oh, you got to be kidding me. You know, like now they go, you know, and you're constantly, I'm trying to make moves out there, right? Because I'm trying to be efficient. I'm trying to get to my destination as fast as I can. And some of you guys some of you guys are looking at me like, what? You know, you do it too. When you think about it, when you go to McDonald's, okay, and you go through the drive-thru, you're doing it the same way. You know where the drive-thru splits into two? All right, what are you doing? You're trying to find out like what line is going to be the fastest, and you're seeing, all right, which one has been going fastest, which has the best track record. Or what are you also doing? You're looking at the cars in front of you like, oh man, that's a mom in a van. She probably got kids. That order's going to take a while. I'm going the other lane. You get what I'm saying? We've all done that. It's true. Just yesterday, I was at my kid's baseball game, and I was watching him go to the field. And it's just like, and we were walking through grass, so there's no like straight line for him. But he's like zigzagging around. You know, I'm just like, dude, they're wasting a lot of steps here. You know, they just go straight. And so after the game, I pulled Toby. Actually, both of them were doing it. It was just kind of irritating me. I'm like, guys, one line, come on. You know, I pulled Toby. I'm like, hey, you see the Jeep over there? And Toby's like, yeah. I'm like, I want you to try something new. Walk straight to the Jeep. Okay, just like you see it, just walk there, you know? And he was like, oh, yeah, okay. And he goes and he starts veering. And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, dude, and I pulled him aside again. I'm like, you're walking to that lady's car, all right? Walk to the Jeep, you know? And he's like, oh, I don't know, you know? I don't know. Maybe kids don't have that. But inside, I'm just like, it's eating me alive. I'm like, this is taking so long. All right, if you just went straight, all right, it would take you, you know, a quarter of the time to get there. See, that's from our culture. Okay, that's what our culture tells us. Our culture says fast is good and slow is bad. Like, I don't know about you, whenever I start a project at home, and I'm not the best at this, okay, because some projects I still are ongoing, all right, but when I start a project at home, like, I try to get done as fast as I can. You know, I don't want to, especially if it's something that I don't like doing. Like, I'm like, let's just get this over with. See, notice, that's how we run our lives for the most part. But notice one thing. That's not what God does. I mean, think about it. Right? He's not cutting corners. Right? He's not trying to get done with his work as fast as he can. No, what he does, it's almost like he enjoys his work. See, we see this right at the beginning. What God does for us is he gives us an example of, number one, we work hard, but then we also rest. See, some of you guys in here, you're a single mom, or you're a mom in general, all right, you're just like, Rest? Okay, like I don't have time to rest. Like people depend on me, man. All right, like I can't take a day off. Like my kids need fed, they need this, they need that. They're always calling my name, mom, 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 mom. They're always doing this, and I'll be honest, like I'm sure you work hard and you're working with there, but I'm just saying, I just want to point out to you, moms, God rested. And I'm guessing, just throwing this out there, I'm guessing he has a little more on his plate than you do. It's God. I mean, he rested. Or maybe you're a manager, or you're running some company, or maybe the owner of some business or whatever, and you're like, man, I got to run this business. I got to run this company. Like, I'm in the real world, and I have a real job. And so when I get that call in the middle of the day, like, I got to take those calls, and I got to answer those emails, and I got to take care of this stuff. And I just want to point out to you, I'm just saying, God rested. And this is God. All right, or some of you, you're like, dude, you just spent 2 weeks showing us how God expects us to work, and we're supposed to work hard, and we're supposed to work with our heart, and here I am trying to step up my game the last couple weeks. Like, I'm taking that overtime, and I'm trying to go above and beyond, and I'm saying that is good. All right, that's what we want for you. That's what God wants for you. But God worked hard too, and then he rested. See, others of you, maybe you're more on the young side. I remember these days. You're like, man, I'll be honest, like I don't even feel tired. Remember those days? All right, we just didn't get like tired that easily. And you're like, I like to work. Right? And you're the type of guy who you get home from your job, what do you start doing? You start working on all the other things you got going on. You got all these little projects in your shop or your garage, or maybe you got all these other things that you got going on at home, and you do this every single day. It's just what you do. And I just want to point out, God rested. Like God of the universe, who's all powerful, right? Who wasn't tired. God of the universe took a rest. But it's not just God who rested on that first day. There's three people actually, or three beings. It was God, Adam, and Eve. Right? Think about Adam and Eve for a second. Their first day, like full day ever. They have a lot of work to do. God's already given them, all right, work, all right, to subdue and manage, I don't know, small place called the earth, okay? That was like their job. That's the work that God gave them to do, to have babies, to populate this place. Like there's so much to be done. And they have this huge garden they got to take care of. And so for the first full day ever, they haven't even worked a day in their life. All right, they're all ready. They're like, okay, here we go. Time to get to work. And God's like, oh, wait, yeah, not today. We're gonna rest today. They're like, rest from what? We're not tired. He's like, it's not about being tired or not. See, I don't think we are to rest from work. We are to rest for work. Right? Before Adam and Eve worked, God has them rest. See, rest is not to rescue us from big bad work out there that's coming to get us and something we have to do and it just, it stinks. No. Rest is to help us work better. See, Adam and Eve, the first day ever, they rested. And it goes so good for them for like a page and a half. Everything was going great. And then sin enters the world. And then thousands of years later, things get so bad and sin takes over so much that God has to start over. He picks this dude named Noah out and he starts over with Noah. And then hundreds of years after Noah, God picks this random guy named Abraham, right, and says, I'm going to build a nation through you that I'm going to bless the world with. And then Abraham's great-grandson, his name was Joseph. If you remember the story of Joseph, we've gone through that here before. Right? He gets sold as a slave, gets taken as a slave to Egypt. He kind of works his way up the corporate ladder, the slave ladder in Egypt, and ends up somehow becoming, by God's grace, right, he ends up becoming vice president of Egypt. And then he brings his brothers in, and they start growing into a nation. And this family that ends up in Egypt, right, they grow into thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people. And then just a few generations later, all right, Egypt's looking around. They're like, what are these people doing here in this huge family? And they enslaved those people for 400 years. And this is the nation of Israel. And if you remember, after that, after hundreds of years, God sends this guy named Moses to free the nation of Israel and to lead them to this land that God had for them. And I'm just saying, I don't know, I wasn't there exactly, but I'm guessing as they were slaves for hundreds of years, I don't think they had that many days off. And I'm guessing that they lost what it meant to rest. And so on the way, God, he stops and he gives them 10 moral things that they are to do, just kind of 10 moral standards that they are to have for their life. It's what we now today call the 10 Commandments. And this idea of work and rest was so important to God that it made it within his top 4. All right? This is top 4 things. We see this in Exodus chapter 20. He says, remember the Sabbath day. And by the way, this word Sabbath, right? This is the same word for the word rest. He's saying, remember to have a day of rest. Remember that day of rest? That's how I created you. All right, this is what's built within you. This is the rhythm of life that I have designed you for. He says, I want you to remember the day of rest and keep it holy, meaning keep it set apart from all your other days. It's supposed to be different. He says, you are to labor hard. All right, you're supposed to work hard for 6 days and do all of your work during those days. But the 7th day, he's like, the 7th day is a day of rest. It's a Sabbath day to the Lord your God. And so you must not do any work. All right, I don't want you doing any work. I don't want your son doing any work, or your daughter, or your male or your female servants, or your livestock. He's like, I don't even want your little dog doing any work. All right, I don't want any work. All right, or the resident alien who's living within your city gates. Maybe they're not Jewish, but they're living among you. He's like, I don't want them doing any work either. Why? For the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in it in 6 days, and then he rested on the 7th. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and declared it holy. See, what God's doing here is he is reminding us how we are designed to function. All right? We, every single person in this room, you, me, all right, we are designed to work, rest. We are designed to work, rest. We are designed to work, and completely rest. That's the rhythm of life that God has designed us to live. It's funny because it's the one commandment that nobody seems to do. Out of all 10, I think most of us, we think we're all decently good people in here, like, I'm pretty good, right? We think we follow the 10 Commandments, and we look at some of them, we're like, have no other gods before me? Check. All right, me and God, we're cool. All right, I don't worship anything else. It's just me and God. What's up, God? That type of thing. And then we're like, don't murder. I'm pretty sure that's one, right? We're like, man, I don't murder nobody. I've never murdered, all right? So I got that one, check mark. All right, I'm not a murderer, all right? And we go, okay, don't lie. I'm like, usually I don't lie. I'm pretty good with not lying. Once in a while you got those exceptions, but it's all for a good reason. And so I don't really lie. So I'm not really a liar. And stealing, don't steal. I'm not a thief. And so I'm good with that. And don't commit adultery. Yeah, I've never cheated on my husband or wife. And so I'm pretty good with that. But then you get to one of the 4th commandment, don't completely rest one day a week. God, I live in a real world. Well, I don't do that. See, that's what the Sabbath means. It literally means stop and rest. That's what the Sabbath day is. In fact, the Jewish people, I know some of you moms out there, you're like, I can't do it. Huh? What about food? What about taking care of the kids? Well, actually, what the Jewish people did, right, during this time with Noah with Moses, whatever he is, okay? They're like, what they did is they intentionally prepared for the Sabbath day. Meaning they did all of their work, maybe they worked double hard, all right, the day before the Sabbath day, just so they can have that day to rest. Meaning they cooked all their food, because they weren't allowed to cook on the Sabbath. They cooked all their food for their kids for the Sabbath day. Sabbath day, they're pulling out their leftovers out of the fridge. Here you go, done. That's it. They didn't work. See, our culture doesn't do that. We don't think that way. All right, we might have a day off from our job, and that's cool, all right? But we stay busy. We pack our free time with all this stuff. We fill our day of rest with a bunch of stuff to do, and it ends up becoming not very restful. And sometimes I have good Christian people saying, they're like, man, you're too busy. You need to rest. Right? What they'll say is sometimes I hear this, they're like, I think you need to slow down. And when I hear that, I'm like, I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think you need to go read your Bible, okay? Because it's not there. See, I'm not saying rest and slow down are not the same thing. Sabbath does not mean slow down. All All right, don't slow down. I'm not telling you to slow down. Do not slow down. All of us, I think we need to run harder and harder and harder. In fact, all right, the question is, should we run at a comfortable pace in life then? And my answer to you would be no. No, like you don't go into a race. Like in high school, in track, like I never once went into a race going, you know what I think I'm going to do today? I think I'm going to run mediocre. That'll be nice. You know what I mean? And it would have been nice. All right? That's not what we do. No, what do you do when you run in a race that you care about? You run as fast as you can without dying. All right? That's where you go. That's as hard as you go. And Paul, he describes life as a race. And I'm just saying for me, like, I don't want to run a mediocre life. It should not be, it's not in me. It shouldn't be in you. No, I want to live life God's way, where we work and we sweat and we bleed for 6 days, and then we completely stop and we completely rest so that we can get at it for the next 6 days. That's how we are to live our life. But our tendency is to mess that completely up. See, even the Jewish people mess this up. 1,300 years later, what they had done when Jesus was around is they turned basically the Sabbath into the most non-restful day you could possibly imagine. I mean, it's just crazy. In fact, because of that, Jesus, if you can imagine Jesus, right, he got in trouble on the Sabbath day a lot. There's this group called the Pharisees. The Pharisees were, picture like ultra-religious people. I mean, these people were all about rules and religion, and they were kind of crazy. And so they would read the Ten Commandments like this, and they would read this number fourth one, okay? Remember the Sabbath, and it said, don't work on that day. And so what they would do is, okay, well, we need to figure out what work is. And so what we need is a list of rules of work and what should be considered work and what's not considered work. And so they came up with all these rules, all right? You couldn't plant on the Sabbath, no trapping, no hunting, all right, no writing anything, because if you write too much, maybe it might be considered work if you write too much, so we don't want to do that. All right, if you write a little bit, you shouldn't be writing at all, but if you have to erase something, that could be considered work, so don't erase anything. All right, no cutting, no tying, no starting a fire, no putting out a fire, so if you got a fire, all right, tough, all right, your house is on fire, this don't work, okay? It's just how it is. They weren't allowed to carry anything on the Sabbath, because if you carried something, I mean, God might consider that work, and so we want to stay away from that, right? That's what they were thinking. You know what they did? They even counted their steps. Just saying, I know some of you guys got the like Fitbit thing that just kind of does all that work for you, but just think about it, all right, without your watch, okay? All right, if you had to spend all day on, let's say Sunday, counting every one of your steps, because if you took too many steps, then you're in danger of possibly working. Okay, that's what they did. That's what they were all about. And so these religious guys, what they would do is they sit around and they would discuss what could or couldn't be considered as work. And so they'd come up with all these hypothetical situations. This is what they did for fun. It sounds miserable to me. And so they'd just be like, okay, let's say it's a Sabbath day, and let's say Nana falls on the sidewalk. All right, we allowed to pick her up? Is that cool, or is that work? We don't want to get, if God considers that work, man, it's going to have to lay there. And so then they'd all be discussing, like, well, I don't know. Like, it might depend on, like, how big Nana is. You know what I mean? Like, if it's little Nana, you just go ahead and scoop her on up, because that's just not much work. You know what I mean? But if it's big Nana, I don't know. Like, maybe she might have to lay there to the end of the day. But what if she's not going to make it? Like, what if it's like she might die? And it's like, I mean, maybe it would be okay to make an exception. It was that kind of thing that they would go at it all day trying to figure these things out. See, that, by the way, is religion. Religion is a bunch of rules of do's and don'ts that you have to do in order to follow or to appease God, really. Right? That was exactly what Jesus was against. Coming up with all these rules. See, one time Jesus and his disciples, they're walking through a field, and there's like a bunch of grain. So it's a grain field, and they're wheat or whatever, and they're like plucking off some of the seeds of the wheat, and they're popping them in their mouth. And guess what? Up popped the Pharisee out of nowhere, and he sees it, and he's like, whoa, I saw you eat that, all right, that little piece of grain, all right, because technically you pulled that off I saw you do that too, and technically, if you want to get technical, that's harvesting, all right, and if it's harvesting, then technically harvesting is working, and if you're working, then technically you're breaking the Sabbath. All right, the Pharisees were like, the hall monitors at school and high school, with the clipboards and stuff. They was always looking for people without the passes. All right, we all hated those kids. All right, some of you guys were those kids. Or if you grew up in the 90s like me, it's like the show Recess. Okay, this is Randall. Okay, you get what I'm saying? Thank you. Okay, appreciate that. All right, this is random. Right? Nobody likes this kid. Right? These were the religious people of that day. It's just how it is. And so Jesus, he responds to him. He says, no. You guys don't get it. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Right? Here's Jesus. He's saying the Sabbath was supposed to be a day of rest. And the religious leaders, they had turned it into a day of counting steps, always looking over your shoulder, always coming at you. He's saying the Sabbath is a gift. This day of rest thing, he's saying, I designed it for you. This was a gift for you. This was good for you. God gave a day of rest for our benefit, for our work. And then Jesus goes into the synagogue where all the other religious leaders hung out, all right? And he knew what he was getting into. And when he enters into the synagogue, there was a man there who had a shriveled hand. So his hand's all jacked up, all right, it's messed up. And in order to accuse him, they were watching him closely to see whether or not he would heal them on the Sabbath, because in their minds they're going, whoa, Sabbath, we got to take this, we're intense on this, so if you heal somebody, that might be considered work, and so technically that's against our rules, and so that would be sinning against God, and so they're going crazy on this stuff. It says, and he told the man with the shriveled hand, he says, come over here. This is Jesus talking. I picture he kind of puts his arm around the guy. He says, stand here before us. And then he looks out at the crowd, right? It's full of people, full of religious people. He says, let me just ask a question. Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath or to do evil? I'm a little foggy on some of this. Should I be doing a good thing or a bad thing on the Sabbath day, on this special day of rest? All right, they don't want to answer. Of course, the answer is good, all right? And he's like, what about, should I save a life or kill a life on the Sabbath? Is that what the Sabbath is for? Right? Is it okay if I saved a life, if that was an option? All right, maybe not for Nana, but, that's an option here. And they're like, no one wants to answer because they're like, everybody knows the answer is to save. He says, but they were silent. I bet they were. All right, these guys are standing in the back, leaning up against the wall. They're like, don't you do it, Jesus. I'm watching you, Jesus. Don't you heal this guy? Don't you fix his arm? All right, you better wait till tomorrow. Don't you do it, Jesus. And after looking around at them with anger, he says he was grieved at the hardness of their hearts, and he told the man, he says, dude, stretch out your hand. So he stretched it out, and his hand was restored. See, the Sabbath was supposed to be the day of rest. And again, the religious leaders had turned it into a day of counting steps, always looking over your shoulder. Sure, it was a day off from your job, but it was not relaxing. And really, to help us with this here today, I think that's the best word to describe what God wants for us. It's relaxing. See, I think we need to take a day during the week and relax. By the way, some of us, we're really good at relaxing all the time, okay? That's not what he's saying, okay? We're supposed to take a day, not 3 days. Get what I'm saying? All right, we understand that? One day. And we're supposed to totally relax, meaning take a nap, right? You understand Jesus took naps, okay? So taking naps is good, okay? Jesus did that. Or have some fun. All right, or let's say this, if you're trying to figure out what might be considered work and what might be considered rest, I mean, think about it. If you find mowing your yard relaxing, go mow your yard. That's cool. If you find mowing your yard as work and just something you got to check off the box, then don't you dare mow your lawn on that day. Get what I'm saying? All right? If you consider going to your kid's baseball game, let's get serious here. If you consider going to your kid's baseball game, right, as relaxing, you sit around, you have a good time, all right, buy a drink or whatever, and it's just relaxing to you, then go to your kid's game, right? But if you consider going to your kid's game as something you have to do, as a check mark that you have to get this done, it's almost like an errand for you, I'm just saying, if it's not relaxing, then it's work for you. You shouldn't be doing that on that day. See, some of us, we just need to put our phone down, and I think it would be good for us as we live in this fast-paced society to do nothing for a day. Spend time with our kids. Spend time with our family. See, some people ask, they're like, man, does it matter which day? Like, it's a little confusing because you got Sabbath, and technically in the Jewish calendar, that's a Saturday, but then church, we do on Sunday, and so I don't understand how that all works. All right, and sometimes I work those days anyway. What we see in Romans chapter 14 is that it doesn't matter which day it is. We just need to pick a day in our week. Well, I can't do that. I live in the real world. All right, some weekends I have to work, and I get it, bro. All right, I am literally working right now, okay? All right, I understand that. For me, this is what I do. All right, and I tried that. I kind of put this into practice a few years ago. But for me, right after third service is done on Sunday, Monday's my day off. And so right after third service is done, to about noon on Monday, it's my Sabbath. I rest. I try not to do any house projects. I try not to do any work. I only do stuff. I try to only do stuff, and I'm not perfect on this. Sometimes I fudge it here and there, and I probably shouldn't do that. But I only try to do stuff that's fun or relaxing. I try to spend more time with my family. See, for me, what I've realized is I have put this into practice in my life, because I haven't always been that way. What I've realized is that for me personally, that when I relax, I get more done throughout the week. Like, I'm more productive in my week when I rest for a day. It's kind of weird as I look back on my own life, and I'm like, it's almost like it's how God made us, to do it in that way, to do it in that order. But if we don't do it, which most of us do, what we actually are doing is, a lot of us, most of us in here, I think we kind of work 7 days a week. We don't work hard, and we do it every day. And I think we're doing it wrong. It's funny because we're so messed up. Think about this. We're so messed up that God looks at us and he says, I want you to take a day and rest. And we look up at him and we say, no. We all do it. See, life's not going to slow down. Another project is just going to come up following this one. And I'm not saying to slow down. The Bible never says to slow down. We're supposed to work, we're supposed to sweat and bleed for 6 days, and then we are to rest and relax and completely stop our work for one. That is the rhythm for our life. And I'm just saying, if you learned how to work God's way, right? If your mom's out there, if you learned how to work hard 6 days a week, but then completely rest for one, and if you dads out there, if you learn how to work hard 6 days a week and completely rest for one, if you retired people out there, if you learned how to work hard 6 days a week and then completely rest for one, and if you students out there, if you learn how to work hard 6 days a week and completely rest for one, I think you would do better work. I think it would show up in your jobs. I think it would show up with your projects at your house. I think you would get more done. I think you would have a more productive week. And I think you'd enjoy your work better. Let's pray. God, we thank you for these words, and thank you that this is how you designed us to live. This is how you created us. This is how you made us. And so obviously, God, you know better than we do. Lord, we ask that you would help us to learn to rest. Not just I'm not gonna go as hard, and I'm gonna work less hard. That's not what you're asking us to do. You're telling us to take a day and fully rest. Completely stop our work, completely rest. God, that is so hard in our society today. I mean, we are so used to, in our culture, we're so used to just work, filling all that. We got to do this, we got to do that. We got all these things that we got going on, but God, that's not how you designed us to live. And as we look around, we realize, it's not working well for a lot of people. It's not good for us. God, we ask that you would help us on that and help us with our work. Help us to work hard. Put our heart into it when we do work. God, we thank you for showing us how to do life. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you here next week at Grace.